Good afternoon, my darlings. It is Thursday, the 16th of May, so we're over the halfway point now. And I bring you yet another little treat. We're going back all the way to 1978. For a very classic. Dawn of the Dead by George A. Romero. He is nicknamed the godfather of all zombies. I would call him the grandfather of all zombies as well, because without him we wouldn't have what we have today. Many have tried to copy him, but none have been quite like George. And I thank George for being here, for making these films, because for me it was quiet escapism. I had quite the childhood, and I found comfort in his films. I found them soothing because it was tough. It was tough, yeah. But it sent me on a lifelong love affair with George, and I love all of his movies, right up to the very, very modern ones that he was doing just before he died of a very unfortunate form of cancer. And it was tragic the way that they took him from us. I hate cancer. Cancer has been in my life on and off with various people around me, and I just think the disease sucks. And the last person I lost to cancer was my darling Orca, and it doesn't show any mercy. It doesn't discriminate. It takes what it wants, and it's never kind. Anyway, we are going to do Dawn of the Dead. Don't have a physical copy of the book because they're quite difficult to get hold of in very good condition. What I do have for you, my darlings, is the audio, which has been uploaded already for your listening pleasure on the zombie audio playlist on my channel. So, without further ado, I bet you're all rushing now to go to the playlist so you can listen to it. Well, let me tell you, it has one of the best narrators I've ever heard, Jonathan Davis. What a beautiful voice, one I could get lost in for hours. And what I love about the audiobook, as well as the actual physical book, is that it covers more than what the films do. It goes way beyond the film itself, which, may I add, is over 2.5 hours long. And this runs to nearly 30 hours, 25-30 hours worth of audio, something round there. It might be a little bit less, but it goes into a heck of a lot more detail of how the people behave the way they do, why they behave like that, what their backstories are, how they ended up in a helicopter, and it covers more of the gradual descent into the dystopian land to which you find yourself with Dawn of the Dead. One thing about Dawn is it really dissects. Oh, there we go. It's gone now. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. That's it. Wonderful book. There you go. One thing that the audiobook and the book itself dissects is us, how we as people behave in a crisis, and it really drills down into it, and it shows the humans that we all are for our weaknesses as well as our strengths. And a lot of it's George understood the human psyche, and he knew what made everything tick. And I love his take on the fact that the entire survival situation is in a shopping mall in the States, and it was a very modern shopping mall at the time. I'm sure there are much better ones now, but to think about just filming it there, to first of all just to write about it there, it shows us for what we are, the ultimate consumers. And what is a zombie? Yes, the ultimate consumer, because they're consuming us, and we are them, and they are us. And it's like an infinite loop, you know, and it's brilliantly done, because here you are in the worst situation possible, being chased by yourself. You know, talk about the best sign I ever saw for Halloween on where I live, and it had warning, caution, zombie outbreak, and then underneath it said eat at Joe's and then a little triangle, a warning triangle at the side that said eat locals. I mean, I wish I'd taken a photograph of it, because the guy had gone to town and he even dressed up as a zombie. It scared the living daylights out of the children. But I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it harkened me back to my childhood, where everything I was obsessed. I grew up, and I still am. I don't think I've physically grown up yet. I'm nearly 50, so there's hope for me yet. But my childhood was Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy and the werewolf, you know, all those things, and Attack of the Killer Spiders and Attack of the Shrews. Oh my goodness me, if I could get my hands on a physical copy of anything to do with horror, I would. I just loved it. And then when I was old enough, in the mid-80s, just before I started high school, or maybe just about when I was starting high school, but it would have been about 11 or 12, I met George Romero, and I found Night of the Living Dead, and I was hooked. I was hooked. Going forwards, I found Dawn of the Dead. Wowee! Here we are in a shopping centre. How did we get there? Well, the audio book was just marvellous. I absolutely adored it from start to finish. I loved the way it described our descent into hell. Our greed and our want and needs had driven us to this point where we were meeting ourselves, coming back to consumers. Our living souls bared all for everyone to see. And then we get stuck in a shopping centre, and how we survive in a shopping centre when all the marauding gangs are on the outside. Now, it's actually quite a bleak very, very dark descent into hell is the Dawn of the Dead. And you have all your professors and your television critics and scientists, and they're all there trying to say their piece, and each one is shouting over the other, and they all want to be heard at the same time, which makes a cacophony of hellish noise. And then you cut back to the production crew who are there trying to film it all and make sense of the jumble that is in front of them. And these people, you've got to bear in mind, have not slept for 2 to 3 days, and they're starting to look and sound very, very frazzled. And believe me, when you've not had enough sleep, or you've been awake for 2 to 3 days and you've had a very scant amount of food, your nerves will be shot. You will be tired, you'll be tight, you'll be wound up, you'll be very snappy, and you'll probably say things that you wished you hadn't. And that is the exact situation that these people find themselves in. And one of the production crew goes to the other, if you've got a chance to get out of here, because he's talking to Fran at this point, who was like in charge of the television crew behind the scenes. And one of the production crew said to her, if you've got a chance of getting out of here, Franny, I suggest you do. We'll be going off air in 12 hours anyway, so it doesn't really matter anymore. And Fran is just obsessed with getting the areas where people can go to be evacuated out of the city, right? Now, actually what she's doing, she's rerunning old evacuation points that have sadly been overrun by zombies, and she's really, in a desperation to save people, she's actually sending them to their deaths. But she doesn't know this because communications have broken down and it's not getting back to the TV station to cancel running these evacuation points. This is when doing the right thing sometimes is the wrong thing. So it's a really good thing that in 12 hours the TV station is going to be off the air anyway, because it's actually relying on reserve backup generators, because the city has lost power, because there's nobody going in to run the substations to make sure that the power's going through, which is why the generators are going to run out of fuel in 12 hours, so it's not really going to matter anymore anyway. TV, it's done, it's a thing of the past. There's going to be a lot of many things that are going to be a thing of the past. You're not going to have gasoline for your car, so you're going to be walking around on foot unless you've got a horse, or you live in the countryside and you've stored maybe a few 100 litres, 1,000 litres of fuel. Unless you've got an additive that you can put to this fuel, it's not going to be worth anything in 6 months anyway, because it's just going to be dead. There'll be nothing in it to give it that that it's going to need to get you going. So you need an additive if you're going to store fuel. Alright, so there's one for you preppers. If you didn't know that, yes, you're going to need it. In fact, I'll find out what it is. Fuel additive. Additive for diesel. Let's see. Stanodine diesel, Stable, that's it, that's the one I was trying to remember. Stable diesel fuel stabilizer. Yeah, you're going to need some of that. Now, I know maybe people have petrol cars, some may even have electric cars. Well, your electric car, if the national grid's not going to be up, it's not going to be much use to you. It goes the same for diesel and petrol, you know. If there's no national grid, you're not going to be pumping it out the ground. So you either find a manual way to pump it out the ground and add stabilizer, a stabil, or you are going to be walking around on hoof, you know. I'm afraid vehicles are going to be a thing of the past. The future is a sturdy pair of walking boots, and don't leave home without a rifle or some way of dispatching the undead, because unless you get them between the eyes and blow the brains out their heads or through their ears, and make sure that that harpoon bolt goes all the way through, my darlings, halfway is no good. Yeah, so that's what you need to be doing as you're going around the what's left of the city. And if you've got any sense, within the first 12 hours of something like this going down, if you're not already hoofing your ass out of the city, you have got a lot of problems coming, as many of the characters in this novel are about to find out. Yes. So, there they are. They've escaped. Yeah. You have the main characters. Do you know, I should know this. I've seen it enough times. I know Fran. Steve Rogers, I think, is the other one. Dawn of yeah. Stephen, he is the eyes in the sky. He flies he's known as Flyboy. He flies a helicopter. We've got Peter, who is an armed policeman. And we have Roger, who's also an armed policeman. And Francine, who is Steve's girlfriend. And the four of them, God bless them, get into the helicopter and try their very best to escape all the way to the shopping mall. And they realise that they're running out of fuel, and Steve says, I have been flying all night, I have not slept, you guys have all had a sleep, I'm absolutely exhausted, there's hardly any fuel left. I see a place that we can land. It's got a helicopter pad on the top of the shopping centre. I suggest that's where we go. And then let's have a break. I need some sleep. And hopefully we can find some food to eat. And though begins the adventure, where they stay hiding out in the shopping centre. And they make quite a reasonable life for themselves. But Fran is always fretting and worrying that they're going to be overrun by a biker gang, or worse, you know, they'll be overrun by the actual zombies themselves. So what she proposes is that Steve teaches her how to fly the helicopter. And Steve thinks, well, you know what, actually, if something does happen to me, at least I know that Fran can escape along with Roger and, oh gosh, I've forgotten his flipping name, Peter. Yeah, so they can escape. And also, I need to mention that Fran is having a baby, and it's Steve's baby. And so Steve wants, more than anything in the world, he wants his baby to survive. Imagine being pregnant and the end of the world has happened. Everybody has got this disease, or will get the disease if they're bitten, and you're on the run from the very people you knew and loved. And you're bringing a newborn baby into this world. It's quite the dilemma, isn't it? I mean, you know, having been pregnant twice and given birth twice to my darling daughters who are now running into their 20s, Mummy is feeling incredibly old at this point. But it does make me think, had I been faced with this situation, would I have been able to, in good conscience, bring my children into a world where everything was dead? I don't know how you'd feel about it. I don't know. I think I'd feel very guilty. I mean, obviously I'd want my children. Of course I do. But what would I have to offer them going forward? That, you know, you can build a life for yourself. You can hide in the shopping centre for so long, but it can't be where your final destination's going to be. And that, in there lies the problem for our characters, Stephen, Peter, Roger and Francine. Will they stay in the shopping centre? Now, I'm sure many of you have already seen the film, but how many of you have actually taken the time to sit and listen to the audiobook? Because it goes into a lot more depth and detail than the film ever could. But that's only because it had a lot more time. I do highly recommend that you listen to the audiobook. For preppers, it will have an awful lot of survival bits and pieces in there that you know, actually, it's good to refresh the old grey brain cells every now and again, and it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do, because you don't want to be stuck there on the day that everything does happen and suddenly it's a blank canvas in there. You've gone into shock and you can't remember. Yeah, oh good grief, wouldn't that be the worst thing in the world? No, you really give it a try. Honestly, I absolutely love Dawn of the Dead, and ultimately I also love Day of the Dead, which is what came after. Yeah, but they'll save that for another episode, I know. Yeah, but I really wanted to share with you Dawn of the Dead on audio because it is such a good listen. It's full of ideas. It's very intense. I certainly wouldn't be listening to it in the dark on my own because I'd be like, like I was at the time. I was doing a very late shift in my office and I was trying to stay awake, and I had to go right up into the wee hours of the morning on this particular shift, and there's only so many Reese cups and coffee to be drunk before you start to feel as though you're nodding off, especially doing the job that I do. So I had this playing in the background, and believe me, I must have had insomnia for like a month afterwards because all I could think about was the audiobook that I just listened to. And yeah, if you really need to stay awake and you don't mind having insomnia, then yes, this book is definitely for you. Scared the living daylights out of me. But that's what you want. Sometimes a really good shock to the system. I mean, not too much of a shock, obviously. You want the old ticker to keep going. But yeah, I would definitely wholeheartedly recommend the audiobook, to which I did tell you it's on the zombie playlist, and you will absolutely adore it. I know you will, my darlings. So without further ado, I'm not going to tell you any more about it because I don't want to spoil it for you, because it is one that really will go bump in the night. Yes, so don't have nightmares, or not too many. So my darlings, happy listening and enjoy, and until tomorrow, take care and don't get too scared.